In the early 2000s, my identity was very much as a drama teacher, not as a playwright. I'd had one commission and I'd written lots of plays, but few of which were published, for youth theatres. But in the early 2000s, I had two commissions that came one on top of another. And these are the first commissions I'd had since Legal Weapon about 4 years ago. And they come completely out of the blue. And that's one of the really nice things about a playwright. You suddenly get a phone call, and for the next few months, you've got some work. So a phone call came, in fact, it was probably an email from DBDA, who were publishing some of my plays. And they'd got an opportunity to commission a play about fire setting. And they were going to publish this play, and they were going to get a professional tour going of it, much in the way that they'd seen Chicken working, and they wanted to support it. So the story of this is going to be in a few different parts, because this is the first part. I'm just going to start off with this. These are my notes from the first meeting we had about it. Dawn Boyfield had a meeting with her. It starts off, thanks for today. The lunch was fantastic. Typical me, food was very important. As a result of this meeting, I'd come up with some titles. Fired Up, you can see, Fired Up, All Fired Up, and Burning Desire. And then over here, we've got Arson About. And I can remember exactly how Arson About came about. In the meeting, and there was a guy called Saul, who worked at DBDO, Saul Jevons. And Saul, jokingly, whilst I think I was sitting on a computer writing something or other, and he just jokingly said, Arson About. And I said, that's the title, that's really, really good. And everybody said, no, that's just silly. But I held on to that. I thought it was a superb title, and it became the title. So thanks very much, Saul. As a result of that meeting, we went away. We had various things that they'd wanted for it. They wanted it to be for year 9. That was the target age range, which was a bit older than Chicken, which was then year 7 and 8. And I then had a meeting with the Hampshire Fire and Rescue Service. A lady called Donna Smith, fantastic, incredibly enthusiastic lady, much like Mandy Rigo from Oxfordshire Road Safety. And this is the meeting I had with her, so this was my starting point for Arson About. And the things that I've highlighted, which seemed to be important, were the kid who is a fire setter is likely to be a spotter. He likes to see fire engines. He's obsessed by fire. Peer pressure is an important thing. New boy, new school, teacher favouring one group. You can see how some of these ideas clicked in. I didn't use them exactly as they thought I might. But then the big idea, the big idea, and I'm not sure whether this was Mick Steele that I got this from, or Donna. I think it was probably Donna. But paper aeroplanes, set fire to the back of it, throw it into the bin, throw it into a stock cupboard, and the fire setter boy closes the door in the hope of containing the fire. Now that became the central thing about Arson About. So then, I'd been to the NSDF, and Tim Fountain had given me this little structure, and without a group to work with and see the play, the structure was really important to me to have. So for any of you interested in playwriting, this is the thing that Tim gave to me that really helped. So there's an insight at the beginning, something that radically upsets the balance of forces in the protagonist's life, causing him or her to go into action. The protagonist is usually aware of this. Initially, it was going to be Ian. So that was the first thing. Ian arrives home, tries to get in quietly without anyone knowing. Mum Gina spies him. Where have you been? Where's your coat? It's freezing. I lost it. What do you mean you lost it? Mum, I lost it. I'm sorry, I lost it. Now that coat thing was something that I took from the James Bulger case, which had always interested me and clearly was on my mind because I was doing the missing play about Dan Nolan. That the mum of one of the killers had found on the night James had been killed, she found on the coat of her son had some Air Force paint on it, the same colour that they were saying on the news had been used during the murder of James. And she kept that. And it was the question of, if you're a parent and you get some kind of evidence like that, what do you do with it? She didn't wash it, she didn't throw it away, she kept it so that when the day came, she had it and she was able to hand it over. I mean, I felt that was a really significant beginning. That beginning stayed in the play and it was due to return, but it wasn't it wasn't Ian that happened to. It happened to Shuttle. So it's quite a different beginning. Then there's a climax in Act 1. And I'm going to go to the other sheet. I'm just going to say anything else. Oh, interesting about Mr. Butcher. I saw him as a bit of a naughty teacher. I wanted to have a go at him. Ian reads the note. It concerns a formal warning to Butcher. This is much later on in the play. Though neither are able to read the letter properly, both Ian and Stewie get the clear impression that Butcher is in trouble for something. Stewie becomes angry. They wonder what he could have done. Ian suggests they look for so-and-so's book or Butcher's mark book. A really interesting development. I obviously forgot that because that seems to me to be a great idea. So, going back to this story structure, I'm just going to go through it because it is a useful one. Insight, something that radically upsets the balance of forces in the protagonist's life, causing him to go into action. The protagonist is usually aware of that. That became the photo love story. That's the first mention of the photo love story there. Act 1 climax, first major reversal, a one-way gate committing the protagonist to a course of action. Often it's presented as a solution to the protagonist's predicament, which is later discovered to be false. Now, Tim Fountain, when he was explaining this to us in the class, said that's getting your characters up a tree. So to get the characters up a tree, the thing that I did, I think, was what's her name, Kylie, being told that she'd got to move, and that split up the relationship with Ian. Act 2 climax, second major reversal. The protagonist is forced to face the implications of the false solution of a choice in Act 1, leading to the protagonist gaining an insight. The audience are confirmed in their belief that this decision was wrong, thus they empathise strongly with the protagonist, a case of the audience knowing more than the protagonist. This gives the opportunity for insight leading to a different direction in Act 3. And Tim said, you've got your characters up in a tree, hurl stones at them. In this section on this sheet, I've got there in yellow, changing work into paper aeroplanes, setting fire to them. Act 3 crisis. A decision is taken by the protagonist under full pressure of the story. She decides to make her way back to the classroom to get help from the boys, when she sees that there is a fire. It's slightly different in the final play. Climax resulting from the above decision. She's killed. And here is the first idea that came from a movie, and I'm going to try hard to figure out what the movie was, where someone told the story from the point of view of a ghost, and I don't think I'd got to this point here. For a few minutes everything went blank. After that I can remember seeing my own body slumped in the corridor, then flames chasing along and consuming me. It didn't hurt, I died. But how? What had happened? So very much written to a structure. I had no idea how that was going to work. And then reactions from DBDA. We really like the direction you've taken. It's fantastic. Photo love story. We really love this. Great, very, very positive. They decide to go to the amusement arcade or something. I said, oh, we really like this idea, but maybe a fun fair is better. Amusement arcades are more of a towny thing, whereas fun fairs visit town and country. Also more likely to be giving away lighters as prizes. Great. The fun fair led to a great scene. The fun fair scene could also show the build-up of aggression and the expression of frustrations as they do throwing games, shooting games, test your strength even. This could also show a rivalry of the two guys. You can see how I adopted this idea, with Stewie showing off to be the centre of attention and Ian feeling insecure about this in front of Kylie. One idea we had was that Stewie could win a cuddly toy, which he gives to Kylie, upsetting Stewie in the process, and their idea was that that cuddly toy would be found burned. We used some of that idea. I used some of that idea. Will kids today relate to the name Sputnik? It was before my time. This is Saul talking. Although obviously I know about it. Alternatives could be shuttlehead or even shuttlecock, and you'll remember I used shuttle in the end. Stewie boasts of setting fire to his den. I'm not quite sure how the den bit will work yet. Do kids this age still have dens? I chose to go ahead with that. So some ideas I took on, some ideas I didn't. I then said about Kylie becoming really worried about being a firefighter's son. Thinking about policemen's kids I knew at school, they were usually the first to speak up to show they weren't goody two-shoes, and that was a lovely idea, which again came at the end of the firefighters scene. There's then an alternative set of ideas that they give, but at the bottom they say, overall, we love it. All was going swimmingly. And then suddenly I had an email out of the blue saying that the people who had commissioned it had decided they wanted it for junior schools. Could I change it? Wow, I'd written a whole play for year 9s, and now they wanted it to be for a junior school. And I wrote back and said, I'm really sorry, that is going to need to be a completely separate play. And so it was, and they organised their own completely separate play, which saw the light of day, but I'm not sure that it did very much. And I put Arson About to bed, hoping maybe one day someone would revisit it. And it was great when that did happen, particularly that someone who had promised they'd work with me, which was Andy Kemp, came back. More of that in an episode or two's time.